There you go.
So there's always this assumption that we're talking about one set of social networks in all of these different ways. In fact, you can think of it as three different categories of how to think about social networks. First, you have what the sociologists have looked at. They talk about them as personal networks. They measure them through a series of survey questions of, saying, who would you give money to? Who do you trust? These kinds of things. And this is where you get all sorts of theory. Strong ties, weak ties, social capital. All of that comes from this world. You also have behavioral social networks. So this is the attempt to say, who do you spend time with during the day? Who do you interact with? Who do you talk to? We can look at it through media. Who do you email? All of these types of things. The thing is that who you spend time with during the day may not actually represent who you care about the most. Presumably, you talk to your mother less than you talk to somebody at work, but you might care about your mother much more. So you've got this behavioral network. Another third component that's come up, recently is we've had all different ways of articulating networks for ourselves. Your cell phone address book is one form of that. But we also have this notion of an articulated public network. If you think about Facebook, you have the ways in which you have articulated who you actually know. You also have, ways in which that's sort of not necessarily equal. So the idea that on Twitter you may friend somebody or fan somebody and they may or may not follow you. And you have to deal with the inequalities of that. The challenge is that we don't understand the relationship between these three types of social networks, and we're trying to find ways of making sense of the theory that's come out of sociology and try to apply it to all of this. More and more recently, we have theories that we've built out from this world, and we just think we can directly apply it. The classic is the Dunbar number, right? We have this notion that you have a maximum number of friends that you can have. 150 is what Dunbar has talked about, so everybody thinks about the Dunbar number as 150. Well, what Dunbar was measuring was a very specific kind of tie at a very specific type of time. And so when you think and try to just take that to, say, Facebook and say, well, 150 people, that's how many friends you should have, it makes no sense, because they're measuring two different things. Because even if you look at these networks, you've got a question of time. Right? Is this a tie or somebody that you're friends with now or somebody you were friends with in the past? We also have different kinds of strength of ties, right? We have a notion of strong tie at the sort of extreme level, weak tie, somebody who you rely on for advice or would turn to for different kinds of things. We also have peripheral ties, the people that you just generally share the world with. Name recognition you may have, but it may not have any depth to it. When you try to say 150 across all three of these and across all time, you're getting a fundamentally different look on what we mean by as friend. And so the two don't actually translate. So the challenge that we have as social scientists is to figure out when do we want to take theories and figure out how they relate to these different types of networks. When do we need to build theories coming from these networks themselves? Or what is the relationship between these different types of networks so we can make the theories have relevance to one another?
Perfect. Thank you.